Vicente Salgado stopped at the door of the shed, the hat clenched between his hands, the worn jacket at the cuffs. Inside, the noise of the sewing machines gradually stopped, one by one, until only silence remained. "Donna Marlene," he said, and the voice that had once mocked her in the bank room now trembled. "I have come to ask for a loan." No one laughed that time. Marlene stood up slowly, wiped her hands on her apron, and looked at the man who had humiliated her in front of the entire village months earlier, when she had asked only for a chance. "Come in," she said. "Here no one is humiliated for needing help." To understand how such a proud man came to knock on that door, hat in hand and voice choked, we need to go back a few months. To the day Marlene Cordero entered for the first time the large room of the bank in Veladas, carrying nothing more than a notebook full of accounts and a sick son waiting at home. Veladas Palmeras lived off the land, and that year the land had dried up. It had been 3 months without real rain, and the small plots, those that supported entire families with little more than a handful of cassava and corn, were beginning to die on their feet. The large producers, owners of wide lands, like the farmer Aurelio Bastos, suffered less because they had deep wells and money reserves. The small farmers, however, felt the drought straight in the stomach. Marlene Cordero was 34 years old, had been a widow for 5 years, and supported her son Duca, 8 years old, by sewing clothes for whoever paid and taking care of a small piece of land that her husband had left before dying of fever. Duca was always sick, a chest problem that worsened every time the cold arrived, and the medicine the village doctor prescribed cost more than she earned in 2 weeks of sewing. It was because of that, because of the medicine bill that would not add up, that Marlene had the idea. If each small family in the village saved a little, just a little, every month, in a common box, no one would need to beg for expensive loans when the harvest failed or when a child fell ill. She spent nights awake, scribbling in the notebook, adding and dividing until the numbers made sense. When she learned that the bank was going to hold an open meeting to discuss aid to small producers, Marlene put on the best dress she had, fixed her hair, and went. She carried the notebook under her arm as one carries a proof of love. The room was full. Vicente Salgado, bank manager for 10 years, presided over the table with a starched collar and a chain watch gleaming on his waistcoat. Beside him, Aurelio Bastos, the largest producer in the region, crossed his arms with the air of someone who was only there out of politeness. When it was Marlene's turn to speak, she stood up with trembling hands and explained the idea. A mutual aid box, maintained by the small producers themselves, without interest, without humiliation, only the promise that whoever helped today would be helped tomorrow. The silence that followed did not last even 3 seconds. Aurelio was the first to laugh, a loud laugh of someone who finds amusement in a child talking nonsense. "A seamstress, managing money," he said, slamming his hand on the table. "That is a matter for people who understand numbers. Donna Marlene, Nanila entred." The whole room laughed with him. Vicente, instead of calming things down, fed the mockery. "The lady has goodwill," he said, with the condescension of someone who closes a door with a smile. "But banking is a serious business. Go take care of your son, for here we handle credit matters." Marlene felt her face burn. She closed the notebook slowly, as one puts away a wound, and left the room under the laughter that still echoed behind her. Outside, Tomás Prado was waiting, leaning against the cart. He was a carpenter and cart driver, 37 years old, also a widower, known in the village for his calloused hands and rare words. He had heard everything through the open window. "They laughed," said Marlene, unable to hold back her voice. "They laughed because they did not understand," replied Thomas. "People who laugh at a simple idea, usually people who have never needed one." He offered her a ride home, and on the way, slowly, without hurry, he said he thought her idea was good, and that if she wanted to try, even small, even slowly, she could count on him for whatever was needed. That night, Marlene sat on the edge of Duca's bed, who was coughing softly while he slept, and made a decision. If the bank did not want to help the small ones would help themselves. The next day, Marlene did not go back to the bank. She went from door to door, She began with the neighbor Dita, who raised chickens and sold eggs around the village, and who opened the door warily, listened to everything in silence, and in the end said she did not have even a coin to spare. Marlena did not insist, thanked her, and moved on to the next house. Many doors closed that month. People afraid of losing the little they had. People who still laughed behind the curtain, repeating the joke Aurelio had made at the bank. But some doors stayed open. A farmer who had lost half his plot in the drought gave what he could, a handful of battered coins. An apprentice seamstress offered 2 hours of work a week in exchange for nothing. Tomas built, with his own hands, a solid wooden box with a double lock to keep the common money, and offered the cart whenever it was necessary to take medicine or seeds to those who needed them. The beginning was small and hard. In the 3rd week, the family of a farmhand named Bastio lost the little corn they had planted, eaten by a plague, and had nothing even to buy flour. The common box still did not have enough money to help anyone. Marlena, without thinking twice, took from her own pocket what she had been saving for months for Duca's medicine and lent it to Bastio's family, trusting that the next harvest would return the favor to the box. It was an enormous risk. That same week, Duca got worse. The fever rose, and Marlena spent the night awake, praying beside her son's bed, not knowing if she would have the means to buy the medicine when the money was truly needed. It was Tomas who appeared at dawn with the amount that was missing, the fruit of extra work he had done without telling anyone, saying only that whoever plants help, harvests help. Duca recovered, and when Bastios' family harvested again, they returned to the common box, not only what they had borrowed, but a little more out of gratitude. It was the first sign that the idea worked. The news spread from house to house. Little by little, more families joined, and the wooden box that Tomas had built received a name, given by Bastiao himself in a conversation circle: Box of the United Hands. Between the work, the visits, the nights caring for Duca, and the talks in the cart, Marlena and Tomas grew closer in a simple way, without hurry, like someone building a house with firm foundations. One afternoon, sitting on the doorstep of a house, Tomas said he had no great possessions to offer, only honest work and a word that never broke. "I cannot promise wealth," he said, "but I can promise fidelity, that I have in abundance." Marlena replied that she wanted to see the box of the United Hands standing before thinking of marriage, but that she kept his affection as one keeps a good seed, waiting for the right time to plant. A year later. When the first full harvest arrived and 5 families had crossed the drought without needing the bank, the 2 were married in a simple ceremony in the churchyard of the village, without a big party. Only the neighbors, whom the box had helped to stay on their feet. On the other side of the village, Aurelio Bastos kept laughing. Whenever the subject of the box came up in a market conversation, "It will last until the next hard drought," he would say. "Then the seamstress will knock on my door, as everyone does." He did not know how much that phrase would turn against him. 2 years passed. The box of the United Hands already gathered more than 20 small families, with simple rules written in Marlene's own notebook, and had never left anyone in need. Duca, recovered long since, helped his mother organize the account books, counting coins with quick fingers. Vicente Salgado's bank, on the other hand, was living hard days. He had invested heavily in loans to the large producers of the region, betting that the drought would not return so soon. Evet, wrong, a new dry spell, even stronger than the previous one, broke large and small crops at the same time, and the indebted farmers, among them Aurelio, had no way to pay what they owed. Aurelio saw his entire farm threatened with auction. He went to the bank to ask for more time, but Vicente, with the head office demanding explanations, no longer had any margin to grant anything. The bank itself was at risk of closing its doors, pressured by the outside board, which threatened to remove Vicente from his position if he did not bring in liquidity quickly. He was on a sleepless night, turning over the accounts that would not balance in any way. that Vicente remembered the wooden box built by a simple carpenter and the woman he had ridiculed in front of the entire village. He learned from talk at the market that the so-called box of the United Hands had never broken a promise, and that it already helped families far beyond the neighborhood where Marlene lived. Pride weighed on him for days before he found the courage. Only when he realized there was no other door left to knock on did Vicente put on the worn jacket, take the hat, and walk to the shed where the association that Marlene had founded alone, door to door, when no one believed in her, now operated in an organized way. And it was there, in that same instant, that opened this story, that he asked for help from the woman he had once told to take care of her son and leave serious matters to others. Marlene could have closed the door. She had more than enough reason to remember every word of the laughter in that room, every look of disdain. But she looked at Vicente, saw a tired man with no way out, and remembered herself 2 years earlier, with the same notebook trembling in her hands. "Come in," she said. Here, no one is humiliated for needing help. They sat at the table, and Marlene explained the rules of the box, as she explained them to any small family in the village. Fair and terrace, deadline according to the harvest, and the commitment to help whoever needed it later. She did not demand apologies, did not ask him to humble himself. She only asked that he keep his word. Aurelio Bastos, when he learned that the bank itself had gone to seek help from the seamstress's box, felt even greater shame, because he also needed time so as not to lose the farm at auction. It was Thomas who went to his house, asking nothing more than honesty, and offered, in the name of the association, an agreement that allowed the farmer to pay little by little without heavy interest, provided that he himself later helped some small producer in the village who needed a hand. Aurelio accepted, head lowered, and for the first time in years sat at the same table as the small farmers he had not even greeted at the market before. After a few months, his farm was saved. Vicente's bank had recovered with the support and trust that the association brought back to the region, and the box of the United Hands became a model for other neighboring villages. One Sunday afternoon at the market, it was Aurelio himself who, in front of everyone, took off his hat to Marlene and said out loud that he had been wrong, that the laughter of poor people is always the laughter of those who have never needed help. Marlene, Tomás, and Duca, already a young boy, continued living simply, sewing in one hand and the association in the other, but with a respect that no bank laughter had ever managed to take from them. This story is not only about money kept in a wooden box, it is about those who choose to build unity when they receive only mockery in return. Marlene did not win because she proved the others wrong. She won because she kept planting, even after being humiliated, even with fear, even alone at the beginning. And the most beautiful part of this story is not that De Vicente knocked on that door asking for help. It is the moment when Marlene, having every right to close that door in his face, chose to open it. Because those who truly build unity do not keep resentment in the same box where they keep hope. If one day they laughed at you, at a small dream, at a simple idea, keep this story close to your heart. Whoever sows with honesty reaps, sooner or later, the respect that was once denied. If this story touched your heart, leave your reflection here below in the comments and tell us if you too have been underestimated and proved, with time, your worth. Subscribe to Canal Cree, activate the bell, and share this story with someone who needs to hear that unity and faith always overcome the laughter of those who doubt. Until the next story.